Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, since it's the beginning of the month, that means it's time for me to introduce this month's theme for Let's Play. And this month, it's all about getting your art supplies from the hardware store. One of the ways that I've found to help myself play is to get things that I can get lots of easily. Some of them are super cheap. And most of all, they're not art supplies, so there's no pressure to use them in the right way, the proper way. It's whatever I want to do with them because I'm pretty much using them for something that they weren't intended to be used for. Now, if you're brand new to Let's Play, it's a weekly video series that focuses on how I've learned to play. Now, each month I have a theme, and that's what the videos for that month will be about. But the part where you're sharing in the link party, you can share anything you want. I'm just the one that's going to stick to a theme. There aren't really any rules for play, so you don't have to stick to a theme. And of course, there's a monthly giveaway too of a $50 gift certificate. I've got all those details over on the blog at acolorfuljourney.com. So what supply did I find at the hardware store to kick off this month? I found a switch plate. One of these things, and I fell in love the second I saw it. I love the architectural feel to it. This is supposed to have like a light switch kind of thing in the middle of it, and we know I'm certainly not going to be using it as a light switch. Well, this is sold as a switch plate. It's in the, where, the things that you put over where the light switches are, the plastic covers, outlet covers, and guess what? I'm so not using it as that. This thing just screamed to me, window, shrine, picture frame. I mean, all these things were just jumping in my head as I saw this. So yeah, imagine my excitement. And I bought this, I brought it home, and now I'm going to turn it into a frame. So I grabbed some old vintage photos that I have. I don't know who these people are, but I absolutely adore their photos. I'm trying different ones out in there to see which one makes me happiest in the frame, which one speaks to me, the muse says belongs in here. And my muse is actually giving me somewhat of a signal that all three of them work in here, so maybe that's a hint I need to do this 3 times. Well, for today I'm going to focus on getting one of them done, and then I may be heading right back to that hardware store to get a few more of these things. Well, I've zoomed in here so you can see how I'm going to put some colors on here. Now, you're probably thinking I'm going to get the whole rainbow involved, but I'm thinking it might actually not be totally involved today. I may stay with black and white, which is kind of strange if you ask me. Anyway, I'm taking my finger, a very fancy tool here, to smear the black paint on. When working with something with such contrast as black and white, any little stray hairs of a brush really stand out and show up. So if I want to do this really nice, smooth, straight part, I found my finger actually works better for me than a brush because I can keep my finger nice and flat so that I'm just staying right along the ridges or edges of the shape of this frame. And then I can go back and touch up any areas that don't seem dark enough to me or don't seem like they have enough paint, that kind of thing, using the finger, getting the corners, the edges, that kind of thing. After I've gotten one side done, I'm going to go and do the exact same thing to the other side. Well, I want to add some words to this, so I went searching through some book text for phrases, words, something that stood out to me, and I found a couple in there. Well, the phrase that I ended up going with that I'd cut out is all the friends we had made. Really fit with the look of the pictures to me. But those screw holes, yeah, those don't fit with the look of the picture. Works really well if you're doing something, say, using this as, say, a switch plate on the wall, but we're not, so I need to cover them up. And so I've got these little vintage stones that I picked up when I was in New York from, I think they were used in costume design in the 30s and 40s, and I absolutely treasure them, but I haven't used them in forever. One could actually say they were a bit of a neglected supply. So I'm thrilled that they fit so nicely here and go with the look and the vibe that I want, but it's just too white for me. I want to add a thin line of black right around there. So I'm going to grab a little brush because my finger can't get in there. It's not going to work doing it with my finger, so I've got to bring in a brush. And I just want this really delicate, fine, careful line going around that edge of the recess in the switch plate here. So as I'm doing this, and by the way, guess what? This is a fine, thin line with black against white. And in the first stroke, can we say, oops, it so didn't work. This is not going to go as I expected. The look that I had in my head is not going to be possible with me. I'm even trying to wipe that off to see if, if I take something and kind of clean it off, it's not going to happen. So rather than fight that, I am just going to totally trust that oops, that is the direction it was meant to go. And I'm going to completely cover this thing in black. As I'm doing this, there is going to be a place or two where I make an oops, where paint goes where I didn't expect it or want it to go. When that happens, all I'm going to do is bring in something like a baby wipe, a wet Kleenex or paper towel, anything like that, and you just wipe it right off as long as the paint is super fresh. If you hit it with something wet, damp, paper towel, baby wipe, etc., that paint will wipe right off of this. And if I'm a patient person, I will let this completely dry before I go on to the next step. But we both know I'm not that kind of person, so I'm just going to have to be careful. I'm going to run that book text right along the top of a glue stick, and I'm going to stick it down, and guess what? There's going to be an oops. I did not get enough glue by the word all, so it's kind of sticking up, so a toothpick to my rescue, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the toothpick, and I'm going to slide it under there, and then squish down, and now my book text is on completely. So I've been looking at this, moving it around, and there's something that just isn't working for me. The black painting that I did, it just looks, I don't know, it just doesn't look right. So I'm going to add a little something more to it by bringing in a fine liner. So I'm going to do some scribbled journaling all around the black area. And it doesn't look like much here, but in person and when it's dry, it'll basically break up that whole area. Just give it a little something there without it being overpowering. And I am kind of blown away that I'm actually sticking with this whole black and white theme. I keep sort of expecting the rainbow to pop up, but it just hasn't yet. Now with this, the fine liner, it is a very fluid paint, and I have another video for you. I'll have it linked down below in the YouTube description so you can understand all about how fine liners work. But basically, it's a really fine tip, and it'll write on anything including wet paint like what I just did here. Well, now let's get those jewels on there. I'm going to bring in some tacky glue. I'm just going to put a squirt of tacky glue on there and put them down. Because I'm working over sort of a well that's there because it's the hole where the screw hole goes, I'm going to put a bunch of glue on here and hope for the best. By the way, that fine liner paint, yeah, it's not dry at all, so I've got to be really careful with what I'm doing, and probably should have waited until it was dry, but you know, why wait when you can just jump right in and see what happens. Using a toothpick as my extra little helper there to get in the details, I'm also going to clean up any excess glue that kind of squirted out. When it's completely dry, it'll dry clear anyway, so I don't have to worry too much about making this super, super precise. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other jewel. Well, now it's time to get that photo in there. And things are mostly dry, so I am trying to be a little careful with this. Again, it probably would be wise if I would let things dry completely. Now, my photo doesn't fit perfectly flat in there, so I'm just going to trim off a little bit of the edges so that the photo will lie flat in there, and then I'm going to get it positioned. Now, if you'd like to know more about ways to let yourself play and those types of things, I've got a bunch of videos here in the Let's Play series, and I also have a free workshop called Permission to Play, and I'll have links down below, or maybe they'll be popping up on the screen if the technology is working with us, and that way you can go check those out. All of those things are free, and when I think I've got it about where I want it, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tape on there. This happens to be repositionable tape. You can use any tape that you've got because it's not like anybody's going to see it. I'm going to double check that it is where I want it before I put my next piece of tape down. That way I'm sure I like the placement. If I'm happy with it, then I just put down some more tape. That way it's completely and securely affixed, and then it is complete. Well, thanks so much for joining me for this week's Let's Play video. And of course, I'd love to see what you're creating, so head on over to the link party over on the blog at colorfuljourney.com and share what you're creating, and also check out what other people are sharing and see how they're playing. Now, you know I'm not a big fan of rules, and Let's Play doesn't have many of them. You are welcome to share any of your play, whether it's related to this theme or not, over in the link party. Looking forward to seeing you over there. Thanks for being a part of this colorful journey.